Good evening again on a Thursday night. Welcome to this week's episode of Think Fast. I'm joined once again by Joe, by Will. Will is on the road. This is dedication to the job. He is going away on a retreat with his wife and
Did not want to
still,
miss.
still,
Did not
yeah,
want to
still
miss.
buzzed in for Think
My man.
Fast. We'll see how the connection holds up. So hopefully he can jump in and get on, get a couple points in at least, and see how that goes. We want to talk this week about I guess the general theme is going to be work and when work becomes an idol. We're always trying to source news stories. And so if you see something that you think would be interesting, send it our way. We might put it into consideration for each week's Think Fast. But I guess we were kind of talking about what is the big story right now. And of course, while we're doing this, a Chinese spy balloon is flying over Montana or something. That might be end up being the big story. But right now, Tom Brady, legendary football player, quarterback, retired this week. And he retired last year, and then he decided he was coming back. And in the meantime, his family fell apart. His wife divorced him. There's a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation, but one of the big reports that drove or that was what was behind it all was his family was ready for him to come home. His wife was ready for him to be done playing football. And supposedly, maybe reportedly, there was a promise. And then after a couple months of retirement, he said, "No, I want to go back and play football." And that led to the dissolution of the family. Very sad story. Again, that's speculative. I'm not going to say 100% that's what happened because I don't know, but there was a lot of smoke around that being the possibility. But working under the assumption that it is, or just the general idea sometimes of workaholism, of finding our fulfillment in glory, fame, money, achievements, prestige, whatever it is. That was something we wanted to talk about. I think Will proposed this week's topic, and so let's get into that. What are your guys' thoughts on this? What do we think is the biblical angle on a story like this?
Joe, I've got a good connection right now, so I'll go ahead and go, and then if I freeze, you take over. But
Sounds good.
yeah, I've never been a big Tom Brady. I was a Peyton Manning fan, so I couldn't be both. But one of the things that always kind of struck me about Tom Brady, especially as the years went on and he continued to win Super Bowls, is that he kind of you know what I mean? Like he wins a ton. He's a good looking guy. He stays healthy, and on top of all that, supermodel wife. He's got 3 kids. Seemed like a really solid family guy. Seemed like he had it all. And then, as Jack said, story comes out. After he retired and he came back, his wife was filing for divorce, and you see all that kind of slipping away. And I guess the main thing that I took from this was that for Tom Brady, there was always something to chase, always something he was in pursuit of, and to a certain extent, that's not a bad thing for a guy to have something that they're striving for, to have something that they're chasing. There's a balance there, but for me, at least, my takeaway was, man, that was a high price to pay for him to chase, one more year of football, one more year of greatness. He didn't even have a good year this year for those of you who watch football. But again, it just seemed like he just continually chasing, continually pursuing to the detriment of his family. And so that was the thing that, again, that I took from this is that, listen, as guys specifically, we can always find something to chase. We can always find something to pursue, but we have to make sure in that chase, in that pursuit, that we don't lose our family in the process. You even hear stories of preachers doing that. They pursue and they chase spreading the gospel and being great ministers, and what happens? Sometimes they can lose their family. And so, yeah, that was my takeaway, is that Brady seemed like a guy that had it all together, but because he kept chasing, kept pursuing, just wouldn't give it up, just wouldn't stop. It seems as though, again, all the reports, say that he lost his family because of it.
Well, I would say, Jack, you had sent this earlier. I think there's a report that just came out that parents they have interviewed parents, and in terms of what was important, percentage of what was important to them, being financially independent for their kids, for their children, was 88% extremely or very important to them. Having jobs or careers they enjoy was also 88% very or extremely important. Getting married and having children was 21% and 20% respectively. Well, why is that a big deal? Because it shows that we have elevated the idea of a college degree, the idea of going out and chasing the wealth, chasing the money, chasing your job, while the idea of family and kids is, eh, if my kids do, that's great. 21% said it's important, extremely important for their kids to get married. 88% says extremely important for them to basically have a high paying job. Well, what does that create? A bunch of Tom Brady's. That's what it creates. People who can't say no to the job, people who work themselves to death, people who don't prioritize the family and the family time. Because as you said, Will, he's constantly chasing something. So he's chasing that career. And if it shows that his self-worth, this is the other piece of it. It's not just about the family. His self-worth was in his job. What brought him value was going out and winning Super Bowls and winning games. Well, clearly that didn't work out this year. They got bounced in the first round, but the guy's won 7 Super Bowls. That's what brings him value instead of grounding that in God. So that's the other piece that I think is important here is where do we find our sense of value in working ourselves to death and in making a ton of money and being able to do, being able to show up day after day after day and work, or do we find it in God and do we find it in our family, which are much more stable things than, a high paying job? That's going to go one way or the other.
This to me, it points us back to Ecclesiastes. I mean, that's one of the people we can definitively say had it all to a degree far greater than Tom Brady, richer, more powerful, more accomplished. Even, I mean, just Solomon had it all, and he writes this book to say, man, what a waste of time. It was all vanity because
All is vanity.
his priorities were all messed up. And he talks about work and labor a lot. I looked it up in the New American Standard, at least. Labor or work occurs 37 times in the short book. So there's a lot of discussion about labor and work. And what he's saying repeatedly is, all right, I tried this, I tried that, I tried pleasure, I tried food, I tried, relationships, whatever, to have a good time, to enjoy my life. And I wasn't getting enough out of it. So I tried labor. I tried working really hard and accomplishing a lot and getting as far as I could. And that was vanity too. And you read that in chapter 2, that like you see people just work their fingers to the bone and like put everything into their work, and they accomplish a lot and they get to the end of their life and that's it. Okay, not great. But on the other hand, there are a few verses in there that say things, 3:13, every man who eats and drinks and sees good in all his labor, it is the gift of God. And there's a few things about that of like the return for your labor and producing and enjoying it is a great thing if the priorities are right. And if you're constantly chasing something outside of God, something outside of a walk with Christ to give you that ultimate fulfillment, and it is that idol in your life, you're going to end up unhappy. I mean, that is, I think it was Tim Keller's definition of an idol is anything we turn to give us what only God can give us. And so if it is a Super Bowl ring, if it's $25 million a year or whatever he was getting paid, if it's the prestige, if it's being known as the greatest, if it's 80,000 people cheering when you run out of a tunnel, and again, this is all speculation as far as Tom Brady goes, but that the point with Ecclesiastes is, man, try as you might, you're not going to find fulfillment in that. So look elsewhere. And of course, we know he comes to the conclusion at the end of Ecclesiastes, the point when all has been heard is fear God and keep his commandments. If you're not doing that, nothing else is going to matter. Before Will gets on, as always, I want to remind you, if you're watching, drop a like. The Facebook algorithm is a wreck, but if you like or you comment, it helps other people see us, helps us not just be talking to each other here. So be sure to do that. But Will, what do you got?
For all of our sports watchers, where does Brady rank as all-time quarterback? Feel free to drop that. I know a lot of our listeners might not care, but hey, if you care, comment. Definitely not first. Just kidding. But the thing that I was going to bring up
Really.
was a lot of this comes down to how do you define success? How do your kids define success? How do young people these days define success? A lot of people, you look at Tom Brady, they would say he was successful. I mean, goodness, one of the greatest sports icons of all time, really, really wealthy. Everybody knows his name. From a worldly perspective, was Tom Brady successful? The answer is yes. What about from the perspective that matters? Obviously, again, we don't know all the details of why he got divorced and why he kind of lost his family. But from a worldly perspective, our kids would look at Tom Brady and say, man, that's a really successful guy. So Joe, I'm glad you brought that up earlier about what we're stressing for our kids as important. We got to do the same thing with success. We got to show them, yes, from a worldly perspective, making hundreds of millions of dollars and being the face of sports is successful. In God's eyes, who cares? In the eyes and on Judgment Day, who cares? We've got to show them that true success, of course, nothing wrong with having a high paying job and again, kind of striving for something. The true success is doing what Noah did and is getting your family on the ark. True success is making sure that you disciple your kids. True success is making sure that you're raising up a faithful generation to serve the Lord. I think a lot of young people nowadays have a worldly, twisted, perverted view of success, something that we've got to reclaim from the world.
It's interesting though, because this is bringing into spotlight the idea of how much, or the concept of family, what value family has, how much it matters, especially when it's dropped. And again, maybe more things are coming out as to the purpose of divorce, but especially like Jack said, that was really all the rumors. They
That
were
was the
just
buzz.
frustrated.
Yeah.
That was the buzz. They were frustrated that he went back, and it did open an interesting discussion because, fellas, we look at all the news and we send each other things back and forth. There's so much. We don't want to beat a dead horse and go after the same things week after week after week. There's so much on the LGBTQ, but what you consistently see is that the family is under attack. People don't value family. They don't appreciate family. But this was a story where it caused everybody to pause for a second and say, what is family worth? How valuable is it? Is if he goes out and wins another Super Bowl, let's say Tampa makes it to the Super Bowl. Was that next week? Okay, was it worth it? At that point, was it worth it? We definitely know it wasn't worth it to get bounced in the first round, to come out and have a losing.
Well, it looks like Joe's the one who
we lose
froze.
Joe? What
Yeah,
on
we thought we were
earth?
going to lose Will, but it ended up being Joe. So,
How about that?
yeah. I hopefully he can come back on and make his point, but sometimes the tech just does not agree with us, but that's okay. I think we've gotten our idea across mainly here, and that's under the assumption, that the reporting is what it says it was about Tom Brady. It's a cautionary tale, even if it wasn't, in the hypothetical, because this is something, a real world thing that happens, is putting too much value in the wrong things, putting too much stock in it. And, you've got Ecclesiastes over there on the one hand talking about the vanity of it all. And then you've got in Proverbs, Solomon talking about, hard workers make money, like that wealth is not in itself an inherently bad thing.
Right.
We know
There's
about,
definitely a balance there for
right,
sure.
and authority and just, praise. All these things come with good work and being upstanding and doing the right thing and all that, but they're not what you're chasing. They are a nice side effect. They are a nice bonus if they come along with it. And that's always the key to everything in life, is what is at the top. If God's at the top, everything else is going to be okay. If he's not, you're going to run into these problems. You're going to, um, there's going to be a collision of values somewhere along the way where it just doesn't work out, because it was meant to run a certain way. I mean, the human life is very much designed, as much as anything is, as the computers and phones we're talking on, as your car or whatever else. It has a design, and if you change the way it works, it's not going to work the same. I mean, just simple math in that sense. And so, any final thoughts before we wrap up and tell them about a couple of the projects we got going on?
Sorry, fellas, I completely lost power.
Oh,
Lights went
power.
black for a second. Yeah, oh
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
lights went black, and I'm on my hotspot because I currently have no Wi-Fi here. So sorry about that.
Yikes.
Nice. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, we knew we'd lose somebody along the way. It's just not the guy we expected.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining. Once again, if you're watching along, click like, drop a comment for us. As Will asked, do you think Tom Brady is the greatest or not? Well, I think we are 3 for 3 in saying that he's very overrated, but had a nice career for himself. And congratulations on retirement. We won't miss watching you play. But we are very saddened by situations like these. But again, it's a cautionary tale if it is what was claimed that it is. Want to remind you, every Thursday night, 7 Central, we're here on Facebook, Focus Press Facebook page. We're going to start posting these on YouTube when life settles down and I can actually do that. But Facebook is the best place to watch it, because you can watch live, you can interact, drop your comments while we're on and such. Think Deeper every Monday, Jim podcast every Tuesday. And
That
so
reminds me, Jack.
Yes, go
Preview
ahead.
our episode dropping this week for Think Deeper. Kind of ties into this a bit.
Yeah. So we did last week deconstruction stories of those who have walked away from the faith. This next one will be things that helped us stay faithful, things our parents did, things that influences upon us that helped us remain in the church, keep our priorities, with God at the center and such things like that. And so I think it's a really good episode. I mean, we recorded it, so I don't want to talk myself up too much. We'll let you guys decide on that one, but that'll be on Monday. Be sure you're subscribed to Think Deeper on your podcast app to keep an eye out for that. And man, there's always something to Focus Press. As I always say, just go to focuspress.org, an email sign up link will show up. Drop in your email. That's the best way to keep up with everything we do. There's podcasts, articles, books, videos. There's stuff all the time. And so keep up with us that way. Thanks for joining us here on Think Fast. And we will see you guys next Thursday night at 7.